Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing the series finale of Peaky Blinders, starring Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy, Anya Taylor-Joy and the late great Helen McRory. Before we go any further though, could you be a dear and hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It really does help me and the channel massively, and we thank you if you do. I have watched this show from the very beginning. 2013 feels like so long ago now. It has essentially been a decade of this show, telling the story of the infamous Shelby family and their notorious Birmingham gang, the Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders has always done a great job of walking a fine line of fiction within reality. If you didn't know already, the Peaky Blinders really did exist, and they really did commit a lot of the crimes that you see in the show, mostly based around racetracks and horses, and good old-fashioned violence, of course. And as much as they dramatise it in this show, they always respect the real history, regularly including characters such as Winston Churchill, Oswald Mosley. Even Hitler comes up in conversation quite often as we approach the 1940s. I've always had some reservation for this show that has stopped me from entirely loving it, but it isn't through any fault of the show itself. I think it's more the fact that it belongs to the BBC, and therefore it's always working with a leash around its neck. It can't be too dark, it can't be too nasty, and it needs a longevity and drama to it that keeps the next season coming. That being said, when given the opportunity, Peaky Blinders absolutely goes for broke and pushes the limit on the violence and the nastier subjects at hand. It won't happen in every episode, but when it happens, boy do you feel it. But that being said, the cinematography, the locations, the soundtrack, the performances, they're all knocked clean out of the park with this show. I sincerely hope that history is kind to Cillian Murphy and the legend of Thomas Shelby only grows as time progresses and eventually takes on the legend of timeless characters such as Tony Soprano and Walter White. I believe he is equally as complicated as the aforementioned kings of TV, but as I mentioned, that BBC leash sometimes stopped them from exploring it too deeply. Even without that extra depth, Cillian Murphy is such an established and fantastic actor that he managed to bring it to the character through his performance alone, I feel. With every season, this character has evolved and changed dramatically and beautifully. I can't be the only person who sees this, but as we get towards the end of the show and the final series in particular, Tommy Shelby is basically like a boogeyman. His arrival constantly brings averted eyes and dead silence to every room he steps into. He's more like a myth and a legend than he is a man. He is the cockroach that has survived a nuclear attack. Every wave of hell has been rained down upon him, forcing everything to be ripped away from him except for his own life itself, which is ironically what he would most be at peace about losing. And he's not the only one. Alfie Solomons is also a legendary character. And sadly, with no offence, it's pretty much the only world-class performances we seem to get from Tom Hardy anymore. Which is sad, but actually makes seeing it all the richer for its limited access. A scene-stealing character who, if I'm being honest, I hope we see again one day.
I was lying out there and the tide had come in and it woke me up. I remember looking around and thinking, you know, fuck, if this is hell, it looks a lot like Margate.
These two characters alone make the show entirely worth your time. I thought the first episode of this final season was beautifully done. They handled the unexpected death of Helen McRory so perfectly. It's such a haunting moment upon its reveal. The silence speaks volumes, and the transition to her portrait burning at her funeral just made the hairs on my neck stand tall. It was masterfully handled, and it's a beautiful send-off for a legendary actress. But I am a little bit mixed on the finale itself, if I'm being brutally honest. I liked it a lot more than I disliked it. My biggest issue was the deceit of the writing to its audience. We've spent the entire season knowing this is the last one, and that Tommy is critically ill and months away from death, having caught tuberculoma from his daughter who died of it. It turns out that that was a lie, a ploy by Mosley to get Shelby's out of the picture. But it doesn't make sense to me, and it's a perfect example of where I feel that the show has to be convenient because of that leash. If Tommy isn't actually ill, then how did his daughter die? Did she actually die of tuberculosis or not? Was there foul play? We don't know. They all went to a hospital and were all checked over. Surely they would know, but apparently not. The hospital is completely forgotten, and now his daughter's cause of death is completely unknown. But if there was foul play, there seems to be no issue with retaliation. I'm sorry, but I thought that was a really shoddy twist. That being said, I did like the end itself, that Tommy still sees this as a clean slate. To start again, his crimes are covered, his estate is destroyed, and the land is given for future property development. The Blinders are all set up for life to continue without him, although the door is open for his return. But I didn't read it that way. He's watching his wagon full of his past possessions burning before his eyes as he rides away on a white horse. A very metaphorical animal, that is. Death himself is said to have ridden upon a white horse, and Tommy does kind of match that description. I do, however, feel that many characters were sidelined because of Tommy's importance. Several storylines and relationships just feel unresolved by the end. With hindsight, it just now makes me feel like investing in several characters is actually quite pointless. I don't see much point to Lizzie, Diana, or Oswald anymore. They all now just feel like ploys to move Thomas Shelby along on his path, rather than having a path of their own. But it didn't disappoint me to a crushing level. It wasn't like Game of Thrones. But I do now have a question in my mind as to whether or not that's a robbery to its fans, that you didn't actually conclude anything, really, in a finale. This is, as far as we're aware, the last ever episode of Peaky Blinders. At least that's how it's sold to us. But having watched that finale, I would easily think there'll be another season next year. But I don't know. I've heard rumours that there's a movie in the works. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think this show necessarily works on a movie level, but we'll just have to wait and see what comes of it. With all that being said, I am still a fan of the show. They delivered exactly what they intended to, and they have delivered some of the greatest scenes on British television for the past decade. Performances have always been astoundingly captivating, and every January I would always be hyper aware that its return is soon. I am absolutely recommending this show to you, but I'm just giving you that warning that you might need to lower your bar beforehand. This can't operate in the same freedoms that shows like The Sopranos and The Wire do. This does have to be a little bit cleaner than that. I still feel that Peaky Blinders always tried to push it as far as they could, and they still deliver some awesome storylines even with their limitations. I'm going to give the final season of Peaky Blinders a 7 out of 10, and the show itself an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching this review. Please be sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And please be sure to hit the comment section. What did you think of Peaky Blinders finale? Did you like it, or were you a little bit disappointed like I was? Take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.